Would the SEC actually leave the NCAA? That idea sounded impossible a few years ago, but SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey says the conversations are real. The SEC is frustrated with inconsistent NIL rules, transfer portal enforcement, and the overall direction of college athletics. While Sankey says the conference still prefers competing for a national championship under one governing body, he warned that unless the NCAA becomes more consistent, those discussions will continue. I don't necessarily think a breakaway would be good for college football. Sport is at its best when every conference competes for one national championship. The NCAA does need improvement, but splitting college football into separate systems could create an even bigger problem. So the big question is, do you think the SEC should stay with the NCAA, or is it time for college football's biggest conference to go on its own way? I don't necessarily know if that even works out for the SEC. I mean, I think they continue to puff their chest out and say, we're going to leave. But I don't think they have the leverage they think they have, because I don't know if they become their own little league and it just becomes like a semi-pro football league. Does anybody really care? I mean, if they just become the XFL, right? Like, does anybody really care about what they're doing? I just think this could be catastrophically bad for the SEC on top of the NCAA. But if I had to pick one side that was going to survive the most, I would pick the rest of college athletics over just one conference that thinks that they could do everything by themselves.
Yeah, and this is all coming through SEC Media Days as Greg Sankey, SEC Commissioner, did not shy away from one of the biggest questions at SEC Media Day when asked whether discussions about the SEC separating from the NCAA were simply a negotiation tactic. Sankey straightforward answered, "They're real." According to Sankey, the conversation stemmed from growing frustration over how college athletics is currently being managed, not an attempt to gain leverage. The SEC believes inconsistent enforcement of eligibility rules, NIL regulations, tampering investigations, and the implement of the House settlement have created uncertainty across not just college football, but college athletics as a whole. While Sankey emphasized that the SEC still values competing for a national championship under one governing body, he also warned that if the NCAA can't provide consistent leadership, conversations about alternative models will only continue. And I can't help but agree that at least the reasons why he would break away are good. They're worthy. I'm more aligned with you that if the SEC were to break away from the NCAA, that doesn't really help anybody.
I don't think it does at all. I don't think they hold the leverage that they think they do. And on top of that, I especially don't when Congress is trying to fix a lot of the problems that the NCAA has, but in doing so, wants to make sure everybody is accountable and held to the same standard. And the SEC, the Big Ten want to be, they want to have their separate rules, right? They don't like the fact that conference realignment is capped, right? Like Congress doesn't want to have these super conferences in college athletics, and they're trying to put a damper on that. They're trying to pool the media rights together. They're trying to make everything uniform in college athletics, but the Big Ten and the SEC still want to be the big dog and get all the money to themselves, and they still want to be a big reason why the NCAA has a lot of problems. So I find a lot of this to be eyewash, that they want the best for college, whatever. They want the best for themselves, and they're not willing to sacrifice for the betterment of the sport, which I find too many organizations across the board are doing. And I can even talk about the high school stuff here in town about how individuals are holding back progress in San Diego when it comes to the betterment of high school football. And the SEC, and I think the Big Ten, are holding back for the betterment of college football. And they're trying to, be the holier than thou. But I mean, I don't think they're actually going to leave. I know the NCAA faces a lot of pressure right now that they have to fix. A lot of the things that they need to fix need help with the government. And if the SEC and the Big Ten are going to drag their feet the whole way, it's, say what you want about wanting all these things fixed, but you have to do your part too.
Yep.
And that's where I kind of lose it. And that goes into the playoff expansion conversation, which is the next topic. I mean, obviously that isn't a done deal. The SEC is holding back again because they only look out for themselves, which I guess is their right, but for the betterment of college athletics, which I think everybody would benefit from an expanded playoff and really centralizing a lot of the rules. The SEC doesn't want to go to 24 teams like everybody else does. They want to be able to control who's in the playoff. They want the easiest path. They want the most money. Whatever they decide to get, whatever they need to get sweetened on to change this. I find everything coming out of SEC media days going, we're the greatest thing that's ever happened to college athletics. You should just do what we say.
And again, he's harping on the same ridiculous talking points of whether fans and television partners truly want a larger playoff and whether adding more games would negatively impact the regular season, which it would not. Sankey also raised concerns about the academic calendar, player health, scheduling logistics, and whether expanding again so quickly is even necessary. So for now, the SEC game remains the SEC championship game remains in place, but Sankey acknowledged future playoff changes would eventually reshape college championship weekend as well.
Yeah, I
It's so light, so lighthearted attempt.
it's just that there's no real justification against the playoff. It's gonna do this, it's gonna do that. I mean, you've only had 1 year of the 12-team playoff, and the reality is they just use it to defend the fact that they deserve all their teams in there.
Mhm.
We play such a hard schedule. We do this, we do that. They also don't play anybody out of conference that's worth a damn. They don't ever play on the road in that particular case. These are all the things that need to be sorted out if we want to be a real league. That's what I believe. I mean, at this point, there needs to be NFL style rules when it comes to scheduling. There needs to be NFL style rules when it comes to the playoffs. I mean, you might as well just admit what everybody's ignoring and notice the elephant in the room that football needs to be different than all the other college sports, and they need to have rules in place that are like that in terms of automatic qualifiers to the playoffs if you win your conference, in terms of making sure every conference is represented, to implementing schedules that don't lead to teams playing 4 or 5 games that are meaningless. You want to talk about what's meaningless? Playing an FCS opponent in week 15, which they finally changed. You don't know it's meaningless scheduling these weird games so to try to benefit your schedule of racking up wins. Watching SEC schools play 4 out of conference games against teams that are not Power 5. They're slowly getting to that, but these are all the rules that need to be mandated in college football. And this is the same thing I said about baseball. You had 2 leagues under one umbrella playing by different rules. In college athletics, you have 10 leagues under one umbrella, all playing by different systems and different rules. That all needs to be unified as well. But again, the SEC and the Big Ten need to do their part if they're going to pop off and puff their chest out about how this all needs to be changed. Well, you know what? It starts with you. You also have to change and maybe sacrifice some things in order for the betterment of college football, because if they do that, it's going to be even more lucrative than what it currently is.
And again, the things that they're fighting for, eligibility, NIL regulations, tampering, like that kind of stuff, the implementation of the House settlement, they're fighting for the right things. They're just going about it completely in the wrong way.